To Amanda Hall's Psychic Mini Workshop series here on Facebook Live. We're up to workshop number 69, and this week we're going to be talking about the full moon in Sagittarius. I'd like to take the opportunity to thank you all for joining me here once again live from the Gold Coast here on a Wednesday morning. It's a very wintry, cold-looking day outside. I'm sure as the sun gets up, it'll become a little bit warmer. But for those of you that follow the show regularly, you'll know I don't particularly like the cold, so it's not my favorite time of the year to be cold and freezing. I like summer and sort of balmy nights and those sort of things. And I actually like humidity, which I know a lot of people don't like, but I actually seem to function well with humidity. Anyway, enough about the weather. Let's have a look at what's actually happening this week around the zodiac. It's been a very, very interesting full moon this year in Sagittarius. And for those of you that know me a little bit, you'll know that I am a Sag, and I really do enjoy being a Sagittarius, and I love, anything connected with Sagittarius. But this particular full moon really caught me off guard, as I think it did a lot of people. And I did a show out of New York yesterday, a radio show over there. We're working with so many people on the show. They were all experiencing what we were experiencing here in Australia, connected with the full moon. Look, my inbox has been full, and I've had emails and I've had phone calls, and I've talked to other practitioners, and everybody's saying to me, my God, Amanda, I can't sleep. And we haven't even, and this was prior to hitting the full moon. This was 3 or 4 days even before the full moon. And it was like, what on earth is going on? And I kept on saying to everybody, oh, well, we've got the full moon coming up on the 17th. I wouldn't get too worried about it. And they said, but, normally the full moon doesn't affect me, or I might have, a couple of hours or a night before. But this one was really intense. And, for me, that I never usually have any effect of the full moon as far as not being able to sleep. Well, bingo, this time I did. And I'm going to say to you, the 2 nights prior to the full moon, which started here on the 17th, which was 2 days ago, I really could not sleep. And it was one of those times where, I went to bed, I was tired, I'd go to fall off to sleep, and then all of a sudden it was like a slideshow of old emotions, of things that went way back to I was a toddler. And I can tell you that was a few years ago now, for me being a toddler. And it was like things that obviously I had emotionally sort of put to one side, which we all do. And it was like they all came up for review. It was like, look at this, look at that, look at this, look at that. And it was like, what on earth am I doing this for? Well, the only thing I can put it down to was I had to have a massive clear out of my old emotions, and it was certainly letting go of them. But in a way that I wasn't scared of it and I wasn't uncomfortable with it. It was just that it was going so fast that it was like I wanted to say, stop the merry-go-round, let's slow it down, because I want to get off. I'm starting to get dizzy from this going at such a frenetic sort of pace. So as I sort of, different people were ringing me and messaging me and things like that, and they were all sort of telling me similar stories, I thought, isn't this interesting? I mean, I knew the full moon was coming up, and I knew it was in Sagittarius. And I was very aware of, starting to work with the full moon energy, as I do 2 days before the full moon, starting to work with my candles about what I was going to release and what I was going to put on my list that I wanted to start to attract to me. And I started to realize that this was even more powerful than any other full moon so far this year for me personally. And it seemed to be affecting a lot of other people in that way too, because 1 minute there would be this wave of sort of tremendous sort of anxiety, feeling cranky, short-tempered with people, not wanting to do anything, sort of, really wanting to have a tantrum almost. And then the next minute, this wave of excitement that sort of like that you couldn't contain yourself, like that that something absolutely amazing is just about to happen in your life and you can't contain the excitement. So it's really interesting how this full moon has sort of played out. And, I firmly believe that, as we follow the zodiac around, there's different times of the year that affect each and every one of us differently. And I know for most Saggies, that the halfway point, the middle of the year is usually a time of readjustment, because everything's sort of, the sun's opposite our own sun sign, as it is for each and every one of you when it's about 6 months out from your birthday. It's like a readjustment time. It's time to sort of sit back, have a little bit of reassessment, have a look at what you've achieved so far since your last birthday and what you hope to achieve before your next birthday. So it's sort of like that time to pull up and just have a little bit of a think and a look and a bit of a rest and whatever, and then sort of, have that resurgence again as we head towards the next 6 months prior to your birthday in the lead up to it. But this particular full moon seemed to be more powerful. Now, look, each month there's a different label that they put on the full moon. This one was supposed to be the pink moon. They have all different names for them. I don't really follow that because a lot of the times the naming of the full moon comes from the northern hemisphere and actually doesn't apply to us here in the southern hemisphere. We're exactly 6 moons away from what they're talking about. So if you really want to get pedantic with that, I think you sort of start to get so bogged down in all the different information connected to the moon that you wouldn't have time to really work with the moon energy. So I really don't take a lot of notice of that, but I do take notice of things of like how I'm feeling, whether I feel well, do I feel agitated, am I sleeping, all those sort of things. And with this full moon, I think the reasons why it seems so exaggerated or more powerful than normal for a full moon in Sagittarius is the difference this year is that we have Jupiter, the planet of expansion and opportunity, which is still sitting in Sagittarius and has been there since last December and will be there till the end of this year, is actually retrograde or going backwards at the moment in the chart. So it's asking us to stop, reassess. We don't need to be full throttle moving forward. We need to sort of slow down a little bit and start to look at the things that we're trying to change or bring into our lives, because Jupiter is the planet of expansion, opportunity, new ideas, of luck, of really reorganizing your life, looking at what is important to you. It covers things like philosophy, religion, higher mind, spirituality. So it's not surprising that since April, if you've started to sort of feel that you wanted to slow down a little bit, or the excitement or the pressure isn't on to sort of keep pushing forward with those new projects, it's sort of like time to take a little bit of a breather, then this is why. So I think coupled with Jupiter being in retrograde in Sagittarius and then having the full moon going through the same sign, I think sort of as they started to collide or sort of join hands or hold hands or be in the same space, and it's a very narrow window of about 7 degrees, which isn't very much when you're looking at the whole sign is only 30. So it was sort of like, just under 1/3, between 1/3 and 1/4, that this energy was sort of really being condensed, or, we were really all feeling the effects of it. And this year's been an interesting year, as we've spoken about many times on these workshops, where I think we're all so much more heightened than what we were. And whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, I'm not sure. It's sort of like, for those of us that work in the spiritual psychic healing industry, we can sort of say, well, yes, we should be feeling the effects of things, because otherwise, if we don't, we're not fit, we're not doing our job properly, we're not being grounded enough, we're not protecting ourselves enough. But for the average person that might just be discovering this, or is still on their journey of self-discovery and enlightenment and opening themselves up spiritually, this can be a daunting time, because it's like, what do I do with this wave of energy? I feel overwhelmed by it. Well, let me share a little secret with you. Even us seasoned professionals can feel a little bit overwhelmed from time to time. So, welcome to our world. It's not necessarily something to be scared of. It's just, let's just go with the flow, I think, is the best answer that I can always share with you in times like this. Is let's not fight it. Let's not argue with it. Let's just go with it and see where it takes us. We can always, not so much opt out, but we can always sort of pull back a little bit and say, well, hang on a minute, this is getting a bit too much for me. I'm going to go and do something else. And, at those sort of times, if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're near the ocean, go and dangle your feet in the salt water. If you're not, take your shoes off and put your feet on the ground, earth yourself, ground yourself. And that will sort of just neutralize everything. And it's, it's a very important thing. But I think this year has been a very powerful year astrologically. And I think we're all sort of more prone or more aware of it, because there is so many changes going on around the universe. And, here in Australia, we got sick to death of elections. We seem to be in election mode for I don't know how many years now, but it seemed to be forever. And we were all just sort of so relieved to get that out of the road. And I think we all sort of thought once that was out of the road, life was going to go back to, quote, normal, whatever that was. But since then, it's sort of like everything's ramped up again, not in the mode of elections, but in our own personal lives and, you know, us all wanting to achieve and sort of succeed and move things along, that it's sort of like, okay, what's next? You know, like, it's like I'm not full, I'm not satisfied. You know, I know I've eaten, but I still don't feel satisfied. And I think that's partly this Jupiter retrograde. You know, even though, you know, we're all looking to make improvements in our life, Jupiter's sort of saying, well, okay, you might have eaten and you're not full, but you don't know what it is you want next either. So it's sort of like this limbo period that we as human beings don't like being in. We like to have a direction. We like to have some sort of answers, even if they're not the right answers. We'd rather have answers than no answers. So it's a little bit of an uncertain time in that way, that we've got to learn to work with the energy. And I think allow ourselves to just be a little bit too, because, you know, it is a time of change. It is a time of new beginnings and opportunities. And we don't always have to be going full throttle. So I think, you know, sort of just enjoy this full moon energy with whatever it's bringing to you, because once we clear the clutter of the mind and the old emotions out and remove them, and it's like a closet or a wardrobe, you can't put any more clothing in there if the wardrobe is full. You have to remove some articles. You have to remove some dresses or slacks or tops or whatever and create a space. And this is what I think is happening in our lives. I think we are all actually creating space for new things to come into our lives. And it's like, because it seems to be going so fast and it's so obvious, we're so much more aware of it than what we normally would be, where it would happen slower and a sort of a more natural pace. It would just sort of organically sort of happen. Now we're being forced to sort of create this 6 inches in the wardrobe, or there's 12 inches in the wardrobe, or 10 centimeters, whichever way you believe. And it's like all of a sudden everything's urgent and we've got to sort of move forward. So for those of you that want to work with the full moon energy and want to work with a candle, can I suggest this? I know we're sort of heading towards the end of the full moon in Sagittarius energy, but we can still be working with the energy of the full moon, even though it's on the tapering side now. I normally work on a 7-day cycle. So if the moon was full, started on the 17th of June, I started working with my full moon candles and my Sagittarius candle on the 15th. Now I work with the score that I like to write 3 things down I'm letting go of and 3 things I'm attracting towards me. And these can be anything. For me personally, because it's my reassessment time of the year, I wrote down the 3 things that I'm releasing and coming to their own natural conclusion and end in my life. And particularly in my working life, I wrote those down, and I've written down 3 things that I hope to attract, projects that I'm working on, bringing things into a new era. So I'm a person that I always need to have something new that I'm working towards. That's what keeps me fresh and excited about my work. I don't like to sort of keep things going past when I believe that they've come to their own natural end. And, you know, everything has a cycle, no matter what it is in our life. There's always a beginning, a middle, and an end. And, you know, I think it's when we hang on to things way past their use-by date that we then lose the momentum or the incredible opportunities that have been there with it, because we're hanging on to something that we really need to let go of. So I've been working with my full moon energy now for a number of days. So I wrote my list out twice. I've been reading it out aloud before I light my candle every day. And I sit with my candles for 15 minutes every day, anywhere between 15 minutes to 2 hours. And I stare into the flame and sort of really believe in what I've written on my list. And that's a really important thing. If we don't believe in what we've written down, then nothing will happen. You know, working with a tool like a candle is only a point of focus, and it's, you've got to really believe in what you're working with. So I've been working with the full moon candle as well, and this is my full moon candle here. I've been working with both of those, and it's been a really important time to sort of say to people that we need to be working with the energy of things. So when this is finished on the 19th, then I'll actually start working with my new candle that will be featuring next week. I'll be working with my destiny candle after that, because I'll be working on enhancing my destiny. So I like to keep working in a 7-day cycle. So it's really important that we do that. And for those people that don't want to, haven't got the space to work with big candles, we do have a gift box set that you can make up of your own choice. There's 28 candles in our range, so you're more than welcome to choose 3 different candles to put in your gift box, so that gives you the opportunity to work with it that way as well, in a smaller space. Those of you that don't want to work with a flame, you can pick up a melt warmer at your local supermarket or department store. You work with that by starting out with a teaspoon each of the soy waxes that you're working with for the 7-day period, then adding a half a teaspoon a day. So going back to what's been sort of actually happening with the full moon, it's interesting because everybody has a story to tell about the full moon. Some people find every month that they're really, really affected by it, that they have trouble sleeping, eating, focusing. Some people say that they can't think straight. They certainly never make a decision under a full moon. For those people that work with crystals, that's a time when they do their clearing and their cleansing and things like that. I'm not a crystal person, so I can't speak to you firsthand about what's the process of which moon and how to handle it with your crystals. I do have crystals, but I tend to sort of work on when I feel that they need a bath and the salt, I take them for a swim. But I'm not religious with working with them. It's more a decorative thing for me. But I'm not saying I don't believe in the power of crystals. I'm just saying they're not my thing. But, we all have different tools that we work with, or how we conclude, or how we find answers. And I personally love to work with astrology because I believe that no matter what we do as human beings, we do naturally follow or listen to our inner voice, whether we want to admit it or not. And no, astrology is not one of those subjects you can turn around and blame it on the planets because your life isn't going the way that you want it to. We do tap into the energy of the universe. We do tap into the energy of the planets moving around the solar system, but it's not their fault if our life isn't going the way that we want it to. We still have free will. We still have the ability to change and make decisions that are right for us, and we have the right to change our mind. And I think that's one thing that people forget, that just because today I've made a decision this way doesn't mean it has to stay set in concrete for the rest of my life. I have the right as a human being to make modifications or change it, or say, gee, that's how I felt on that day, but today I have a completely different belief system. And that's called evolution and growth. If we lived our lives by just one set of rules, how boring would it be that we never made a change or progressed in our lives? So it's really important, I think, to learn to listen to your own inner voice, to work with the energy, and when something's meant to be, it will be easier. But don't always look at the first hurdle or the first knockback that you get is the universe saying to you going the wrong direction. That's not always the case. The universe might be saying, well, maybe you need to put in a bit more effort. If you really want this to come to fruition, then you've got to work for it. You don't sort of just shut the door because it became a little bit too difficult. I'm a firm believer in, if you really, really want something badly enough and you really believe in your soul that it's meant to be, then you move mountains to make that a reality. You don't just sort of give up at the first hurdle and say, oh, well, the universe didn't want me to have that, or didn't want me to achieve that, so I'll just shut the door and move on. I've always been a person that I've tried to follow my own dreams throughout my own life. It may not necessarily suit everybody else, and it may not suit my family or my friends, but I believe if you're honest with yourself and do things to the best of your ability and try not to hurt anybody deliberately along the way, then you're living your life to your fullest potential. And I've always believed in, if I know something's right in my heart and my soul, then I'll move mountains to make it a reality. Because, you sometimes have to to push to get what you want. And a lot of that comes back to what's actually in your astrological chart. And without going into the whys and wherefores, there's, we all have obstacles or restrictions in our chart to make us better people. If everything came too easily to us, we wouldn't value anything. We wouldn't see the reward in working hard for something and that sense of achievement and accomplishment. So I hope you've enjoyed what we've been talking about today on this workshop. For those of you that might want to book a private consultation with me, you can head to my website, www.amandahallpsychic.com.au, or you can message me, inbox me here, and I'll happily get back to you. There's many different ways that we can get answers in our lives. And, lots of people sort of tend to think that they've got to book in with an astrologer or a psychic or something and spend a lot of money and spend a long time with them. Please be guided by what feels right to you. For me, I have been in the industry such a very long time that I'm able to sort of get in and get answers for my clients very, very quickly. So this is the reasons why I offer 3 different sizes of readings. I offer, my readings start from a 15-minute consultation up to an hour for a reading. Astrology is a different thing because you can have a little bit of astrology in a reading, or you can have a full-blown chart, and there's many different choices on the types of charts that I offer. But what I want to sort of share with people is you don't always have to spend a huge amount of money to get answers. You're attracted to a particular psychic for a reason, then that's the person that you should go to. Don't just go because everybody says, oh, this person's absolutely fantastic. If you don't feel drawn to them, then they're not the right person to help guide you throughout your life. So, being a good psychic is not necessarily telling somebody what they want to hear, but it's giving them the honest truth of what's being shared with you. It's up to them what they do with the knowledge and information that's been guided and given to them. It's not up to you to sort out their lives for them. So until next week, I hope you have an absolutely fantastic week. I will be doing a workshop next week on destiny, and it's one of my favorite subjects to talk about is destiny, because we all have an amazing destiny. So until next week, bye for now.